Good afternoon. I'm going to ask you to keep your seat for 1 second before we move into the other parts of our agenda. Last week, a Kiwanian asked me to tell them, what does the word Kiwanis mean? Kiwanis is a Native American word, and what does it mean to Native Americans? And I was like the Kiwanian, I memorized it. It's like we trade and we give back and we build. But guess what? I met Lori from Meadow, and I wanted her to share a few words about how Kiwanis impacted her life as a child.
Thank you for this opportunity. Like you said, I am working with Mela, which has been a great passion. It's been a passion to serve you guys too. So thank you so much. I am a Native American. I am a Coharie from Clinton, North Carolina. And I just wanted to address a little bit about the Kiwana. And I know you probably know, because you're working, you're hard, you're dedicated people. But to really give you the long term of how it really adapts into us. Kiwana means, the other side of meaning means to serve. It also means to honor. We honor our children and our future by building them up to be leaderships, to become those things that's passion and desires into them. Not all will be doctors, but here's the key thing, their dream and their passion. When I was in middle school at Fayetteville, North Carolina, I was introduced to Kiwana, and then it was called Keys. And the only reason it was Keys for us is because we couldn't pronounce Kiwana. I mean, you're coming from this land and you really want to pronounce it the native proper way. And it made an impact in my life when things in my life was not the best, when my home life was kind of upside down a little bit, when things just was unsure. And it made an impact in me. And I believe some of that legacy of who I am today and where I'm at today is part of Kiwana. It's because of the leadership. It's because we took great pride in building and serving our children, not making them anything more, but letting them know that they can do all things, that they can be greater than what they are right now. They can build, they can choose a dream and a vision. That's what Kiwana meant to me, and that's my life story. So when you're talking about this, go deeper and say, hey, we're here to serve, and we're here to build, and we're here to bring honor, because that's what it means.
Thank you. Lori, thank you. And from what I have learned, we've already started changing our orientation package to go in a little bit deeper on Kiwana. So thank you. So now, if it is a great day to see each and every one of you, let's welcome that sunshine. It is beautiful, so enjoy this day. It's a great day to be a Kiwanian. Kids need Kiwanis, and Kiwanis needs you. So thank you for all that you do, and invite your friends to come join us. Let's stand for our defining statement. Kiwanis is a global organization of volunteers dedicated to improving the world, one child and one community at a time. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clay, will you lead us in song today?
I certainly will. If you will go into your book, page 13, song 31, The Star Spangled Banner. And let's try to use the right words starting off this time. And the pitch will be, oh, oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose stars and bright stars through the perilous fight, for rampant we watched, were so gallantly sweeping, and the rockets' red glare, the bomb bursting in air, came through the night.
Thank you, Clay. Thank you, thank you.
Join me in prayer. Lord, we thank you for this beautiful day and the hint of spring to come and new life. Lord, we ask that you give your blessings to Jimmy Carter, a great man and someone who really lives by what we do in Kiwanis. Lord, we're grateful for this club. We're grateful for everything that we're able to do and help in communities. And we thank you for this food, and we ask that you bless it. Amen.
Thank you, Alice. Now we will introduce our guest. Buck, are you going to take off with our guest? We will introduce our guest today. So I think we have a few guests. We have two. So if you'll stand, our guests are, I know Scott, yep, yep, Rob.
It's my pleasure to have Robbie back for a second visit, and I've got a check and an application.
Woohoo! Yay! Welcome.
And Robbie is an Eagle Scout. I was reminded last week that once you're an Eagle Scout, you're always an Eagle Scout. He volunteered for 17 years at the Yates Mill Country Park, County Park. He retired from NCSU in the horticulture department. Grew up in West Edgecombe County near Rocky Mount. Welcome, Robbie.
Hey, welcome, Robbie. West Edgecombe is where I'm from, and he lived 2 houses down from where I did. So it's good to see community folks in the giving back to Kiwanis. And Robbie has signed up to serve at the Salvation Army tonight. So way to go. Thank you. Scott, I think we have another guest. Hamp, are you introducing Scott today?
Yes. Kiwanis, I'd like for you to welcome a former member of our club, Scott Trantham. Scott went to NCSU same time as I did. We did not know each other there. He was over at the smart end of the campus studying engineering. So he's back with us today, and let's give him a big welcome.
Welcome, Scott. Glad to have you with us. Jim?
Yes, I have Jeff Ellington with me. He, again, is a former member, so welcome him back. He's from Burlington and came over here for a long time, and we'll try to get him to come back.
Yes, Scott and Jeff, we're glad to have you back with us. Thank you. Okay, we do have several announcements, and Buck's going to run a little bit. So I know that Grady, where is Grady? Is Grady, oh, right back here. He needs the microphone.
Yeah, I'm Grady Jackson. I'm chair of the House Committee, and I am asking that if you have availability, we could use some new members of the House Committee. Primarily, we set up before meetings, we take it down after meetings, and we take the leftovers to the Salvation Army, and just looking for somebody to get on the committee, and so we can start scheduling and get a little bit more help on that. So
You're way too nice. Raise your hand so I can get your name down. Who's willing to work with Grady on the House Committee? We need some help. I'm happy to help set up. Okay, great. Robbie's going to set up, and I can give you Robbie's information. And Robert. So Robert, Stacy, and Robbie. Anybody else? Oh, and Mary. Very good. Fantastic. Thank you guys for volunteering. Perfect. Okay, Mac Jenkins is going to share some update on the Miracle League.
We have a opportunity on May 13th to volunteer with the Miracle League of the Triangle. Our slotted time is 11 to 2. It's at the Queensland Road facility, the same one we did last year. So we're looking for at least 20 volunteers. And it's very impactful, not only to the kids, their parents, but when you're there, it's a great time. May 13th.
May 13th, it's a Saturday morning. So if you participated in that last year, it was a wonderful Saturday morning. The club was very excited and energized. Just raise your hand if you were out there last year. Okay, so there's our 20. Let's get signed up and some others come join us, okay? Fantastic, thank you. Salvation Army, we are serving tonight. Cricket, do you want me to share who's serving tonight, or did you want to do that? Okay, so we have Bob Goodell, Robbie Wooten and Courtney are serving tonight. Thank you. Our next opportunity to serve is March 24th, and that's a Friday night from 4:30 to 6:30. So thank you. We have remind you, check your emails. There's lots of good information. Alice needs a microphone. There's lots of good information in that. And now, Alice, will you share us a quick update on Charter Night?
Thank you. We are having Charter Night on April the 28th, if I remember correctly.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
correct.
And it will be at the University Club where we were last year. It's going to be very, very similar to last year, and the good news is that they have not changed their prices. I'm still waiting for the final estimate from the club, but I believe that we will be in a situation where guests will again be charged $35 and members are free, so we're able to hold that steady, which I think is really great. So I just wanted to remind you, and we'll, like last year, 6 o'clock will be the social hour, and we'll start the meeting, dinner and the meeting around 6:45. I really hope, we had great turnout last year. I hope we have it again this year. Everybody seemed to just really enjoy themselves last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Andy, would you like to share any updates on, we're good? On the golf tournament? Okay, fantastic. I'm sorry, he's eating. That would be my timing. Phil, would you introduce our speaker?
Have we ever voted anybody out of the club? No, okay, well, I'll wait till Buck's year. We're very pleased today to welcome Ben Kinney. He's the publisher of Business North Carolina and SouthPark magazines, to speak to us. He's Business North Carolina, if you're not familiar with it, is a statewide business publication that focuses on our people and industry and trends in the business community, making up our diverse economy. In its 38-year history, Business North Carolina has won more than 120 national awards. In 2012, it was voted the best regional business magazine in the country. Ben is a history major and graduated from North Carolina State University. Ben has served on the board of the Greater Raleigh Chamber of Commerce, the Alliance of Area Business Publications, and serves on the NC State Alumni Magazine's advisory board of directors. He's active in the North Carolina Business Committee on Education, the North Carolina Economic Developers Association, and is a graduate of Leadership North Carolina. Ben and his wife Charlotte live in Charlotte. I guess Charlotte was named after her. They have 2 sons. And here's something which most people don't know about Ben. His family lived in Winston-Salem many years ago, and his father went to Columbia University on a journalism fellowship for a year. And Ben moved there to New York City for part of the year and was in the 4th grade of a school called PS 125. He was accepted into the Harlem Boys Choir, which is known around the world. Ben also plays the guitar almost every day, the same with running. It's a daily event. I noticed he didn't bring his guitar. I forgot to tell him to. However, we look forward to hearing one of the state's most knowledgeable people about business and music in our state, Ben Kinney.
Hey, how are y'all doing? Good. Y'all may not know this about Phil, but Phil was also publisher of a statewide business magazine when he was running what is now called the NC Chamber. It was then called NCCBI. He was the publisher of a magazine called North Carolina Magazine. And when I first started working at Business North Carolina, I was a sales rep. I was here in the Triangle. I worked for the News and Observer for a while and then went over and worked for Business North Carolina, selling advertising to Eastern North Carolina and the Triangle. And I had to sell against North Carolina Magazine. Now, because it was a chamber magazine, it was kind of like take me out on the old prairie where Neri said, what Neri said, a discouraging word, because it was very chamber, pro-business, no investigate. Yeah, it was basically, hey, things are great. Yeah, your business is awesome. It was a good magazine, very quality publication. My magazine, or our family's magazine, on the other hand, if we were to put you on the cover, sometimes that might not be a good thing. So basically, the first time I became a rep, I had to go out to Eastern North Carolina, and I had to go to Kinston. And one of my accounts was the Global TransPark, which I don't know if y'all know, but it was a big development airport out in Kinston. It was very controversial because it had a lot of, a lot of money went into it, and they were trying to land a big company to come out there, and they didn't. And so we did a cover story on it of just this big field with grass overgrown saying, "There's no there there." I didn't know that. I didn't know we did that earlier. So I got the call and went out there to see the folks at the Global TransPark because I was going to try and sell them advertising. They were a client and stuff like that. So I drove all the way out to Kinston and just got, I got chewed out for about 45 minutes of them with this cover going like this. And the last thing that lady told me was, "Why can't you be more like North Carolina Magazine?" And I went, Phil. I said, yeah, good point and stuff like that. So, but we've always enjoyed the relationship, and we go way back, and I really appreciate y'all having me here today. What I thought I'd do is kind of go over a few things, just tell you a little bit about the history of Business North Carolina. I have also been asked on a couple occasions to talk a little bit about why North Carolina has been, you've seen us in the headlines a lot, specifically with CNBC's Best Place, Best State for Business over the past couple months. What are some of those factors? And then talk a little bit about maybe what we can see coming in 2023 in terms of the economy, if that's okay. And I'll try not to go over. First and foremost, this is Business North Carolina Magazine. This is actually it's 41 years that we've been in business. And essentially what we've done is like Phil said, we report on the people, the entities, and the companies that make up our state's very interesting economy. It's very diverse as well. And the story keeps changing. It's changed ever since we started, and it keeps on going. So it's just an incredible state. We have some incredible businesses and success stories that come out of here. And I think that it's great subject matter for us to write about. I'm also publisher of SouthPark magazine, which is a arts and culture publication based in Charlotte. Our parent company actually owns or publishes a bunch of different ones. Here, we're also publishers of Walter magazine that y'all may be familiar with. That was acquired 2 years ago as well. So our parent company is located in Southern Pines, and I'll get into that in terms of our history. Essentially, how we started was we started in 1981, and the company was started by a gentleman, Whit Shaw, who basically also started up American City Business Journals. So the same company that does the Triangle Business Journal, the Triad Business Journal, and Charlotte Business Journal, that gentleman started up Business North Carolina before those. And if you all know anything about American City Business Journals, they're all over the country. It's a huge entity, and they all do those kind of similar, top everything and events and all kinds of stuff like that. But it's a great North Carolina success story. He ended up selling 5 years into it, sold it to the News and Observer Publishing Company, Business North Carolina. And so at that time, that was when Frank Daniels Jr., who many of y'all know and also passed away last year, purchased it. It was part of a couple of different newspapers and things like that. The biggest paper, of course, being the News and Observer. So it was owned for a while. My dad my dad was a journalist, and we were living in Miami, or South Florida at the time, and we moved back up here he took the job as editor. When he took the job as editor of the magazine, he took more of a journalistic approach to the magazine. So it was very much report on all different kinds of businesses. Essentially our motto is to entertain, inform and entertain our readers. And what he did was he did some things that some people weren't very used to. Like I said, with the Global TransPark story, another great story when in its heyday, we wrote a really, how can I put it? A really descriptive piece on a CEO of one of the largest banks in North Carolina. And he didn't like it. So he came with his people into our offices and demanded to see the reporter that wrote the story. My dad and the reporter were in my dad's offices. My dad was publisher at the time. And basically, the guy kicked my dad out and berated the reporter for about 30 minutes as well. You get the feeling about berating people that with Business North Carolina for about 30 minutes. It's a long story with that. So anyway, the magazine was doing very, very well. We created a niche for ourselves. We had as a group, people respected us. They knew they were getting kind of the straight story with Business North Carolina. That being said, fast forward, the News and Observer still owned us. Fast forward to 1995. The News and Observer, as I'm sure you all know, was sold to McClatchy, and the Daniels family sold the newspaper at that time. Newspapers were very different back in the mid-90s during that time. It was kind of one of the only sources of information around, and it was definitely one of the only sources of revenue for advertising from that standpoint. I don't know if you guys can remember, but back in the 90s, you used to get your newspaper, and it was about that fat, your Sunday newspaper, and then your classified advertising was about the same size as the newspaper. That was pure advertising, and that is a lot of money. So newspapers were doing very well. Because of that, McClatchy ended up purchasing the paper from the Daniels family, and everybody that was investing in it, they paid a good price for it, premium. During that time, my dad decided to purchase Business North Carolina from McClatchy because it was just a small cog in a very big company. And Frank Daniels Jr. invested in it and helped him out do that. For the next 20 years, our family owned Business North Carolina. I came on board. I worked for the NNO, as I said. I worked up here, lived in 5 Points, and worked at Business North Carolina after the News Observer. And then we moved down. I moved down to Charlotte, which is where I grew up and went to high school, and became publisher. About 6 years ago, we purchased. My dad was looking to retire, and we went back to the Daniels family and asked them if they would be interested in purchasing Business North Carolina. And the person that is kind of in charge of all that now is David Warnoff, who is the publisher of The Pilot in Southern Pines, who also had some other publications and actually worked for Business North Carolina for a while. And I thought it'd be a good idea to talk to them about purchasing us, because we knew they knew what they were getting, we knew what we were getting. We didn't want to change anything very much, and we wanted someone that kind of just wanted to let us do what we wanted to do, as long as we kept doing it in a good job. Doing a good job of it. So great. So fortunately, that's exactly what they were looking for. David wanted to have more of a statewide presence, and so they purchased us 6 years ago. And it's just been a really good relationship. So since that time, what we've done is expand what we do with Business North Carolina, where at one time it was just a website and the magazine. Now, in addition to that, we do events across the state. We do a CEO summit, which is CEOs from across the state getting together for 2 days in Pinehurst to network, talk about policy, those kind of things. We also do a big manufacturing summit called MFG Con, which is the state's manufacturers getting together for 2 days. We do that with NC State and a couple other statewide events as well. So that's a big portion of our business. The other thing that's a really big portion of our business is something called the Daily Digest. This is a daily email that we do that kind of lists the top 5 business stories happening in the state. In addition to that, we also have our editors, myself included, each has a day, and we kind of talk about what's on our mind. Now, most of our editors talk about business and what's going on. I don't talk anything about business in my intro. If you got it today, there's no business in it. It's basically what I like to listen to, a comedian or something from that standpoint. But the cool thing about it is the engagement on this thing has been over the top. People really enjoy it, and our open rates are great. It's very successful, and it's taken a life of its own. Finally, the thing I will mention is I'm also publisher of something that we launched last year called the North Carolina Tribune, and it's a political daily email, subscribe-only newsletter that basically talks about everything that's going on in state politics. And we try our best to not have one sway one way or the other. It's not red, it's not blue. Our color's purple, quite frankly. And so we try as much as we can to talk about politics in a straight, informative way. Let people, however you want to, decide what you want to do. But also we kind of have a little tie to business. What does this mean for my business? And that's kind of the mission for that, which has been really successful as well. So that actually about a year ago is when we launched that, which has been nice. So basically, what a lot of people are asking right now is, why is North Carolina in the national picture in terms of a #1 state for business? And so as you all remember, I think it was July of last year, CNBC had this big announcement, and they're at Wrightsville Beach, and they announced that, this is the #1 state according to us, and they gave some reasons why. We get accolades, we get accolades from Site Selection magazine all the time, and North Carolina has always been in the top 5, and back and forth and things like that. This year, in the past year, we've been number one, like over all different mediums and stuff like that. And a lot of people are wondering why that is. So what we found in talking to people, and we do a lot of work with economic developers, is a lot of things have changed in terms of economic development in North Carolina. In the past, economic development was some factors that were important in economic development were obviously infrastructure, highway systems important, transportation, cheap power, low taxes, incentives, good workforce, kind of basic things that people look like. Over the past, I'd say 10 to 15 years, that's changed a little bit. Those things are still extremely important, but even more important are quality of life issues that economic developers look like. Their workers are very important to them, they want them to be living in places where they can raise a family and be happy and healthy. And North Carolina more than fulfills that for folks. And so that's a really big factor that maybe wasn't as big a factor back in the past as it is today. Anytime you talk to a company executive or someone that's moved here, the first thing they talk about is, oh man, the weather. Oh, the weather. You know what I mean? I mean, if you're taking someone on a site selection tour and stuff like that in North Carolina, just walk out that door on a February day, right? It's beautiful. And so people keep talking about that. Other factors are that, believe it or not, you can get in your car and you can drive to the beach and you can drive to the mountains. It's a day's trip. I never realized how important that was to people because we take it kind of for granted being here. But if you're coming from Ohio, or some other place, it's a big difference, because our mountains are incredible and our coastline's incredible. I mean, probably on the East Coast, we're primo without a doubt. Once again, our location too. We're right in the middle, of the Eastern Seaboard and such. So it's easy to get to other places up and down the coast as well. That's a major factor. Just this location is incredible. Other things that people really look for are good healthcare, good schools, just real good quality of life issues and things like that. And North Carolina fits the bill on that. One of the biggest issues we had during the Great Recession a couple of years ago was our unemployment rate was sky high. And the main reason that was, that not a lot of people know, is that no one left here when they got laid off. They stuck around. And we had people that didn't have a job coming here, even though there was no job to be here. Our employment rate looked nuts, and people were wondering why. That's a major factor. So that the location's a big deal. Other things that make the state just really incredible are higher education. And Phil knows better than anybody in terms of that stuff. So essentially, obviously, it's the no-brainers. Here in the Triangle, you have the three universities that are just, brain power without a doubt. And they're not doing anything but just gearing up and getting better. As an NC State alumni, I'm amazed to see what's happened at Centennial Campus in terms of that second engineering campus that's almost a city in itself, and what's happening there. Companies love that. They're tapping into that brain power. If you don't think that Apple coming here, that was not a factor, believe me, it was. The second thing, though, is in other higher education as well, our colleges and universities across the state are doing nothing but improving. And my son goes to App State, and I'm just amazed at how much that place has grown so much. UNCW, ECU, UNCC, they're all growing, and they're harder to get into. I mean, I couldn't get in the state now. I don't think I can get in it. I mean, seriously, I know I can't. So those places, I mean, it's just incredible to see. The other thing that I'll say is the hidden gem that no one knows much about North Carolina outside of it is our community college system is second to none in the country. And I'm truly amazed by what we can do in terms of our community colleges. If a business wants to relocate here, they're one of the first people to approach them and say, what do you need to a business? What do your workers need? How well do they need to be trained? How can we do it? How can we help? Every community college is different in terms of how they approach it because it's different companies that they're going against. But their can-do attitude's amazing. And I've always wondered why this is the case. And I think the case is because North Carolina took it on the chin so much during when mills started closing and tobacco wasn't as good. We had to retrain all these workers we had here pretty quickly, and we're pretty adept at doing that. So I think we learned from our challenges as a result of that our community college system is just second to none. Let me make sure I got everything here. Yes, okay. And then finally, the main thing is we have a very business-friendly government. You know, we talked about taxes and incentives and things like that, and that was still a bit of a challenge many years back. Taxes weren't where we were to our neighbors in South Carolina. We kept missing out on these big job opportunities like that. When the Republicans took over the legislature, that was taken care of, and those taxes went down quite a bit. And so that was gravy. That really helped out in terms of us being able to compete with our neighbors, to the point now where we have these announcements like the Toyota battery plant that's basically that we're seeing around the Siler City area. It's a VinFast, the car makers, car makers in I guess it's around Pittsburgh as well, something like that. And Boom's Supersonic, which are making jets. All these announcements in Greensboro, and finally, of course, the Apple announcements happened here in RTP. That doesn't happen by mistake. So all those factors are why these companies are coming here. The one thing I'll tell you all to keep an eye on in terms of our economy, in terms of places growing, is that area that's around Siler City, that portion of the Piedmont that didn't really have much going on in the past. You know, when I was going back and forth between State and Charlotte, and still do to this day, I say State, sorry, Raleigh, but the 6449 corridor, as you recall, you know, you drive through Asheboro and look at Sir Pizza and, you know, all that kind of good stuff. But now there's a bypass around Asheboro, and I hadn't driven it in a couple of years except the other day, and I was amazed at how that had changed things. But what really amazed me was, as I got from Siler City and was driving into the Triangle the other day, the amount of construction and development that was taking place as a result, and the nicer houses, high-end housing and stuff like that really coming up. It's amazing, and I'm telling you, you're not going to recognize that area once this mega site for the Toyota battery plant comes up. It's unbelievable, the size of it. You can't really understand how big it is until you actually see it. But on the other side of it is there's going to be so much development around that, supporting businesses and those type of things are really what's going to just change the dynamic of that area. So I'm very bullish on the triad, because out of the three major metro areas, it's always kind of been number 3. Look for that to really take a big step forward in terms of our state's economy as well from that standpoint. The other thing I'll mention a little bit is just where are we going as an economy this year? And this is a moving target. So if you would have asked somebody, an economist 6 months ago, they would have said, most likely we'd be in a recession right now, and we don't know how serious it's going to be. Fast forward into the fall of last year, economists were predicting we're going to have a recession, but it's probably going to be the second half, third or fourth quarter, and that's when it's going to happen. Now, we did our economic forecast a month and a half ago, and we actually had it at Campbell Law School in downtown, and our economist said, we're going to have one. It's going to be in the second half, but it's going to be really light, you know, as well. Fast forward to now, some people aren't even predicting we're going to have one. We're already seeing that a little bit, and there's a lot of factors involved in that. Frankly, what I see in terms of North Carolina, I don't think, and I don't put it out there, but I don't think that we're going to really see much of any kind of a slowdown. And the reason for that is because we are booming, and there's a lot of stuff still in the pipeline. So if you go out and look at all the construction on your streets, look at the construction of new buildings, look at the number of cranes that are downtown Raleigh or Charlotte for that standpoint. People are still working. People still need qualified workers. If you talk to businesses these days, that's their most important challenge that there is, finding qualified workers. It's very important. So it's just been very interesting to see how things have developed. You know, obviously the Fed is still, you know, been cranking up interest rates, although not as much anymore. Inflation itself is still bad compared to where it was, but it's either leveled off and it might be going down a little bit more. Gas prices, the same thing. And the unemployment rate is unreal. I mean, it's record breaking. And the thing about it is that most people people that are going back to jobs now are folks in the hospitality industry. That was the one lagging indicator from a hospitality standpoint, is that folks weren't going to the restaurant aspect of things and those things. Those people are starting to come back. We saw that in the fourth quarter. And North Carolina, that's a major industry for us, is hospitality. So we're seeing that build up a little bit more. So there's just reason to be a little bit more optimistic than we were, say, last summer as well. Some factors that probably need to be addressed are obviously IT, technical workers. As you know, you hear a lot about those layoffs from that standpoint. There's a little bit of a silver lining to that, in the sense that if someone gets laid off at a Cisco or someplace like that, more than likely they have the job skills that they're going to get a job fairly quickly. That's a lot different than other industries and stuff like that. So even though those are large numbers of people that are getting laid off, most of them are going to have a pretty easy time finding another job, because they have those skills that people need so badly. The other thing to consider, obviously, are housing. And, you know, people are talking about bubble bursting, or, you know, that we're definitely cooling down in terms of real estate and housing. Not necessarily a bad thing. It was getting white hot and insane there for the past couple years as well, from that standpoint. So, you know, I'm bullish, especially in the urban areas in North Carolina, definitely for 2023. Our urban areas are always going to be a challenge, and that's something we always write about in Business North Carolina, is what is the you know, the rural-urban divide and stuff like that, and how can we still serve our rural folks, you know, while still encouraging growth in the urban areas. And it's getting better, and this is just my take on it. But so I was in Little Washington a couple weeks ago, and you know, I hadn't been there since I was in college, but I was amazed at the amount of growth in just that area. There was tons of development going up on the waterfront. They're building a new marina with condos and all this kind of stuff right there, and that's Little Washington. So what I'm taking is after the pandemic hit, I think we had a lot of us, and some of y'all may have done it, is a lot of us said, well, since I'm not working from home, I'm going to either go to my second home, or I'm going to buy a second home, or live at the coast, or live somewhere else and do the remote work style. And they found out that it worked. So I think more people know now that they don't have to actually be in a city to actually, you know, to work. Entrepreneurs learned this a long time ago, but I think that might be a factor that some of our rural areas, there's a bit of hope for that standpoint, and that, you know, you can start your own business there as well. So we're seeing a little bit more of a trend for that. There's still some areas where we still need some help. There's no doubt about that, and that's still going to be a challenge for us as well. Finally, just I'll let you guys know a little bit about what we're writing about coming up. And this is funny from Phil. Phil's magazine started this list of the 100 top golf courses in the state. And when that when the magazine stopped publishing, I got right on the phone with the guy who was the editor of it, Kevin Bradford, and said, hey man, how can we get that thing? And so since that time, we have been publishing the top golf courses. So that's going to be our April issue. And one of the main things we're going to talk about, in addition to listing those golf courses, is the importance of golf to our economy. And the reemergence of golf as a major industry back in North Carolina. It always has been. It tapered off a little bit during the 90s, you know, after the Tiger Woods phenomenon. When Tiger Woods was rocking, they were basically building golf courses everywhere, right? You know, you couldn't, behind every neighborhood and whatnot. That slowed down a lot, to the point where people were starting to close down on them and things like that. Now, because of the pandemic, and golf was about the only thing that you could do outside, during the dark days of that, it's booming now. It's amazing, and things are happening all over the place. The USGA is doing some amazing things in Pinehurst. And Pinehurst Resort itself is building another golf course, which I don't know if y'all play, but if y'all remember where the old pit was the name of it. That's being developed into a new golf course for Pinehurst Resort. They're springing up all over the place. It's pretty impressive to see it come back the way it has. So we're kind of writing about that as well. We also are going to be doing our power list, which is a list of the most powerful North Carolinians in business, and we're compiling that right now. And we just did a really good, interesting story on the State Employees Credit Union and how that's changed over the years in terms of its philosophy. It's got new leadership, and I don't know if you all seen it, but there's actually a commercial now for State Employees Credit Union, and I had to actually do a double take because I thought they're advertising, you know what I mean? They always have kind of run behind the scenes and been very service oriented and such, and so now they're changing the way they do things. They're changing how they're considering business loans and such, which is something they never did before. So that was our story last month. But I've enjoyed speaking with y'all, and I know it was a lot over the past half hour in terms of what's going on in the state. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. So thank you very much. Oh, thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, I was just curious your opinion on VinFast. You think it actually takes place and they get all that done and sell EVs?
So, yeah, good question. It's a great announcement. And as many of you know, sometimes they'll announce, something will be announced and a lot of stuff's promised. And when it actually, something happens, it's sometimes can be different from that standpoint. So from our standpoint, we haven't been really reporting on it a lot. For the reason is we got to wait and see what happens. You know what I mean? It's very exciting if it happens, but I don't know if you've noticed that there's been some reports in the news about VinFast in terms of closing down some other, money and all that kind of good stuff. But they're having some financial issues and such. So, hey, we've been through it. You know, anyone that remembers Dell coming to the Triad or a bunch of other different things. Rather than, when we're not going to cast doubt on it or anything like that, but we've been keeping our powder dry just in terms of reporting on it and such. We covered the announcement, and compared to something like the Toyota battery plant, where you can see right now, you can actually see physical activity. That is, but I hope it happens. Believe me. Good question. Yes, sir. Oh, it's like Donahue.
Who's Donahue?
Yeah, right. Pre-Oprah.
I'm just reading your daily digest. I got it here.
All right.
Get that. But what is this TikTok? You write on TikTok?
No, I wrote on TikTok, and basically, I vent is basically the bottom line with it. So essentially, what I said is this, and so I wrote about TikTok today, and essentially, we're trying to ban it, right? You hear it, everybody's trying to ban it right now, and my beef with that is I agree. I'm not a fan of it without a doubt, but how can you ban something that basically was the #1 download 3 years ago? I mean, so many people have it. How can you ban it? Where was everybody jumping off and pulling their hair out when this appeared on the scene 4 or 5 years ago? I didn't hear that much about it. Sure, people did complain about it and stuff like that, but where were they?
Yeah, my daughter's in the Air Force, active duty in the Air Force, and said she's just hearing nasty things.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's Chinese.
Absolutely.
In that, I mean, it's probably as dangerous as balloons.
Probably more so. Yeah, without a doubt. It's interesting though in terms of that, but I just think about like big tech and things like that too. When people now think Google's evil, and I wrote this, and we made a movie about it, celebrating it like 5 years ago. It's called The Internship, about how great Google was, and it's just.
How do you feel about the incentives that we offer? It seems like the average citizen's costs are going up, housing and whatever, and we offer an incentive, and the employees come from out of state.
I think that a lot of folks in terms of incentives is like, if you ask an economic developer, what they'll say is it's just the way you have to do it. It's the way it is, from that standpoint. That's kind of the we don't care for them, but you have to do it from that standpoint. But there was a time when business still came here when we didn't have many incentives. Like I said, we've got a lot. That's a one bullet, but I'm not 100% sold on them from that standpoint. I think people use them just because they're there, and I wonder how much companies really ask for them and how much that factors into it. I don't think it factors as much into it.
Hey, man, I had a question. So in the 22 election cycle, the chamber got involved in the judicial races statewide again. They supported the Republican candidates. It seems like they had kind of laid off for a while. Do you have any insight into why they got back involved in those races?
Bill? Yeah, without a doubt. I don't know. It's interesting. You're right. They've kind of come and go, from that standpoint, and I'm not sure if that's from leadership or board of directors or from that standpoint. So I really don't know. Oh, what in terms of what the yeah.
Were there any signs in the economy or anything business related?
Any business related signs as to no. Yeah, I think quite frankly, from the chamber standpoint and stuff like that, and Phil, you made a great point and stuff like that. It's pretty good for the state chamber because it's a Republican legislature, from that standpoint, and quite frankly, they're very business friendly. And so they're kind of going in tandem and stuff like that. So other than that, I just can't really think of any reasoning, that they would get involved in that. And they're hard to interview, believe me. For sure. Hey, thank y'all. Appreciate it. Yeah.
So we donate a book to the classroom. I'm going to ask you to sign in the front cover, and here's a pen, right? Or you have a pen? Either way.
No, I don't.
Okay, here you go, right there. Thank you. We've enjoyed it. I will tell you, Ben, you gave us lots of good news today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I mean, the nice thing is we know that we live in a state that many people want to live in. You talked about the weather, you talked about location, you talked about the education system. Only thing you told me today is I didn't know Bill knew anything about golf.
Oh.
And he's responsible for the top 100 list of the top 100 golf courses. So, okay.
He's on the panel.
I know, that's what I meant. So thank you. We enjoyed it. Speaking of, I'll tell you something you don't know about Phil, but you have to come next week to hear it. That's why I know. That's why I'm telling it. Jeff, Scott, Robbie, good to have you all. We're excited. We got your application today. We'll have an orientation set up next month. Those that are serving tonight, the Salvation Army, thank you. We heard lots of good opportunities of how we can engage in our community. Salvation Army, one tonight and then next month. And then Mac shared with us about the opportunity at the Miracle League. We also have the golf tournament and charter night, so mark your calendars. It was good to see everybody online today. And now I'm going to ask Phil to share a resolution with us.
Memorial resolution in honor and recognition of Thomas Eggleston Cowherd, Jr. And I'm going to say Tom instead of that long name. That's all right. Whereas Tom Cowherd, son of Thomas Eggleston Cowherd, Sr. and Ann Blanche Bates Cowherd, was born on September 10th, 1937 in Richmond, Virginia, and died on September 17th, 2020 at age 83 in Raleigh, North Carolina. And whereas Tom Cowherd graduated in 1959 from the University of Richmond with a Bachelor of Arts degree in French. And whereas Thomas Cowherd was a teacher for 3 years prior to entering a 29-year career of sales with Deluxe check printers. He was married to Eva Adams in 1960. They had 2 children and moved to Raleigh, North Carolina in 1969. He retired in 1992. And whereas Tom Cowherd was a man of strong faith, a member of North Raleigh United Methodist Church, and a volunteer with the Interfaith Food Shuttle, and whereas Tom Cowherd was predeceased by his wife Eva in 2010 and his daughter Martha in 2015, he was survived by his son Stephen, son-in-law Jacob Isley, and 3 grandchildren, Hannah and Adam Cowherd, and Branson Isley. Whereas Tom Cowherd joined the Kiwanis Club of Raleigh in 2016 and was an active, dependable, and valuable member. And whereas Tom Cowherd was a loving family man who opened his heart and offered sound advice and counsel to his friends, to his family, and to members of the Kiwanis Club of Raleigh, who recognize him as a suitable role model for any citizen who seeks to make a positive impression among his family and to leave his community a better place. Whereas the Kiwanis Club of Raleigh desires to recognize, honor, and emulate the life of Tom Cowherd and the quality of the relationships he built. Therefore, be it resolved that the Kiwanis Club of Raleigh hereby memorializes the life of a loyal member. Thomas Cowherd celebrates his career and commends all to a life well lived and a demonstrated dedication to his family, to his friends, to his church, and to his community. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread upon the minutes of the Kiwanis Club of Raleigh, North Carolina. Be it finally resolved that a copy of this resolution be provided to the Cowherd family as an expression of the afternoon in respect of the Kiwanis Club of Raleigh, North Carolina for its member, Thomas Eggleston Cowherd, Jr. And on behalf of the Memorial Committee, I move that this be adopted. You want to call for a vote?
So we have a second, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. May we close with a moment of silence.